let's start. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming onto the Doggone Positive Way. And I understand. And so, behind you on your screensaver, who's Scout? Who's Zoe? Tell me about them.
Zoe. Scout was, all started with Zoe. And she developed allergies at the very young age of 6 months. We thought it was some kind of something else because she had little bubbles on her or little bumps on her abdomen. And the doctor would give her antibiotics and it would clear up and then they would happen again. So we finally had her tested, and the testing, they didn't do it very well. So they said, oh, she has allergies. It's like, oh, well, by that time, it's like, okay, how can I make her more comfortable? And then when she was when she was about maybe 6, I started going down the road a little bit more because her allergies kept getting worse. And I was giving her injections. And soon we had Scout, who had joined our family, and he also had allergies. So I actually started this path by wanting to make rawhide out of deer skin that tanned the way Indians or Native Americans would have tanned it centuries ago.
Interesting.
But I was trying to talk to deer processors during deer season, which doesn't work because they're way too busy, and then they're closed. So it's like hit or miss. So, but I hit on the idea of antler dog chews, elk antler dog chews, and there just happened to be a small elk ranch in Indiana for some reason.
Oh,
who knew? So I went over there and bought some antlers and came home and had my husband, cut up some pieces, and I sanded them off and I gave them to each of the dogs to try. And it's like, oh, these did really well. Because we were having problems with tartar on their teeth too, because they couldn't have any bones because Ziva was allergic to beef and Scout was allergic to chicken. So they did well. And then I thought, okay, well, we need to try this with some neighborhood dogs. So we did that. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I could make a business out of this. So I bought some antlers. I was marking them. My husband was cutting them with a chop saw in the basement. And then I was sanding them. I was packaging them. And I really thought that this venture would be an online direct to consumer run out of my basement or my garage sort of thing. But that didn't turn out the way I had thought it would, because direct to consumer really never took off. And for some reason I did more, it was easier to do wholesale. And when Home Goods and Whole Foods ordered from me, when I got POs from both of those, it's kind of like, oh, and I fulfilled them out of the garage. My husband thought to himself, he goes, this is a business. This isn't a hobby anymore. And that's what started everything.
Excellent. That's really awesome. When did you start?
2010. So
2010.
We've just completed our 15th year. So we've just started our 16th year in business, Sweet 16.
Oh, that's exciting. It's exciting. So it was like, let's just do this. You just, again, this is somebody else I interviewed last week. She was saying the same thing. I was like, how did you get started? And it was all because of her one dog having an issue, a health issue. And that seems to be a pretty common theme with us for sure. Did you, was there difference? Like you were getting antlers, and one thing that came to mind are the antlers that they sell in the store, and they seem really, really hard. Are the ones that you get like from, say, a fresh kill or an elk farm when they slaughter or that type of thing? I don't know if they do. I don't know enough about it, but do they cut them? Are they different texture inside? Like that's what I'm looking, like the hardness.
Right. Well, we only use antlers that have been shed. They're wild shed. And this elk farm that I started with used some sheds, but then they cornered some of the elk and cut the horns off of them. And that really stresses the animal out, because if you just wait, they'll fall off and there's no reason to cut them. So that's, if you go to see an antler that has it's called a burr. It's where the antler was on the head and then it fell off. It's like a scab that heals and falls. And so the hardness of the antler really doesn't change from whether it's cut or whether it's shed. But what does change is in a freshly shed antler, there will be blood in it because it was connected to their head and now it's not. But then if it lays out in the field long enough, it won't be there. The marrow will just absorb everything and it'll be clear. But the hardness of the shell of the antler when it falls is it's consistently hard. Where you see a difference in the antler is after it's in the field for a while and it weathers and it'll turn gray and it'll start having cracks in it. And so if you've ever gone to a jewelry store and talked to someone about a diamond, there are different grades of diamonds. And just like different grades of beef, like there's prime, choice, or whatever, there's different grades of antler, and the A and the B are really fine, freshly shed. I mean, they're perfect. They're absolutely perfect. When you get into the C or the chalk antler, which is the really gray with a lot of cracks in it, that's kind of crap antler. That's craft type antlers where it's not really good for dog chews because it won't last very long. And we like to sell a pretty premium product, so we only go for the A and B.
Definitely. Now, do you do any type of processing to the antler at all, or just the farm or the source where you get it before you would ship them out to the consumer or to the stores?
No, not anymore. We used to bring whole antler in, so it would be this gigantic antler.
Wow.
That had, like if it's a 7-point buck or whatever, we would have the whole thing. But we used to have somebody here in our town cut them, but it was really expensive for him to do that, and the cuts weren't consistent. So now we buy from a broker out in the Western United States, and they have our specifications for size and diameter and everything. So I just say, okay, I want 100 pounds of large, 100 pounds of jumbo, and 200 pounds of extra large, or whatever the size is, and they just cut them to that, and they're already here. So they're not cleaned, they're not washed in any way. They're in a natural state except for cutting them.
Okay, that's awesome, because as you know, so many things go through different processing techniques and all that, and especially for our pets, there's not a lot of regulations per se. So it's like everybody always wants to know, where are they coming from? What did you do to it? Et cetera, et cetera. So,
well, the reason that I didn't want to do anything to it is I wanted it to remain as natural as possible. And a lot of there initially, many years ago, there was a lot of chatter about, oh, you can get salmonella or E. coli. Well, not really. I mean, you probably could, but I'm fairly susceptible to that. But since I've been handling antlers, I've never gotten sick from them. And dogs can't get or don't get sick from them because their digestive tracts are much more condensed than ours are. And they have different acidic levels in their intestinal system so that they can handle that kind of stuff more easily than we can. But we've never had, I'm knocking on wood, we have not in the past ever had a claim about any of the antler products making any animal sick or harming them in any way.
Right. Yeah. I, as a rule, like to feed raw or home prepared, but I do all the raw bones and everything. And I mean,
those are great. My dogs have raw bones.
Yeah. And it's like, there's no, and as far as people getting salmonella or E. coli, that's just cross-contamination that you're doing in your kitchen, in my opinion.
Or you're not washing your hands after you do that.
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of cross-contamination is happening.
When I make the meals in the morning, because I do all the meal prep in the morning, I make it. I clean up everything that I've used to make it. I've washed my hands, and then I wash all 3 of their bowls after every meal. And so that and as well as their water bowls. So there's not a possibility, unless they drink from a puddle out in the yard, that they would get anything from any of that, because I keep it as clean as if we were going to eat out of them, because we prepare it in the same place.
Exactly. exactly. Same thing. That's also why I was asking like about the bones, because I started, years ago doing the raw diet and, using the soup bones just raw from like, the grocery
From the
store or
butcher.
wherever. Yeah, they used to be so cheap. And then after several years, like everybody was like, "Oh, soup bones for your dogs." I was like, "Damn, we should stop telling." No, I'm just kidding. But everything's so expensive. Even cheap cuts of meat now because they're on some cooking show. It's like London broil is like $13 a pound, but it used to be like $6. But we made it all fancy. But yeah, because the bones work so amazing on the teeth, just keeping them clean and saving some money on those dental bills.
Well, and it's good for them because they have that natural chew drive. It gives them something. It has a little bit of the prey instinct in there as well because it has that aroma of something freshly dead or reasonably freshly dead. And then it has all of the marrow that is like the caviar. If you eat caviar, it's just like the caviar of the world for dogs because they get to that marrow. And my dogs, when they have fresh bones, I used to get them a fresh bone every Saturday, each one of them. And in the summertime, that keeps them occupied for a long time. And it's beautiful because they're so quiet and they're not barking and they're not chasing squirrels. It's like, I love fresh bones.
Yes. For so many reasons.
For so many different reasons.
It's awesome,
But mostly for me because it's quiet.
Exactly. We just adopted. I think he's maybe 13 weeks, a puppy, and he's amazing. He's lovely. He's wild as all get out because he's teething and everything. But it's just like, give him something to do, and he just gets nice and quiet. I give him a lick mat. I got some peanut butter, put it on it. He's like, oh yeah, this is good. Just keeping him occupied.
But no bones or antlers until he gets his permanent teeth.
Well, we can't do anything right. Exactly. And we can't do anything right now because he came in with a broken jaw on both sides. He was found on the side of the road. Yeah, I know. It's so sad. He was so it was so sad. And one of my friends is a vet tech, and I was like, "Oh, what's his story?" And she was like, "Oh, found on the side of the road, broken mandible, both sides, da da da." So he's on soft, everything's soft and flat, mashed down to the pad because his mouth, his bite, his kind of has like an open bite. He had an NG tube, and then he had an esophagostomy for feeding for like a month. So then they went on to all soft food. So we've got him it's mashed down. But I mean, you would never know it because he's like, "Hey, I'm a puppy, and I'm going to bite everything in the universe," because I'm a puppy. But yeah, he's real sweet. But yeah, I'm going to transition him over to a raw diet and stuff. But yeah, I can't wait till we can give him some raw bones or something. But it's great to keep them occupied and keep them healthy and their teeth healthy. And yes, occupying is wonderful because as much as we love our animals, we do need to do things other than constantly play with them or enrich or engage with them. So other than these two babies that I see behind you, tell me where you got Scout first, or where you got Scout, where you got Zoe. Like, how did these beings come into your world?
Well, they're both gone now. So,
sorry.
Yeah, well, no, it's okay. If you had asked me about this right after each of them passed away, I would have been devastated and told you I couldn't live life.
Yeah.
But they've been gone for a while. But I get to talk about them every day. So not everybody's pets get to leave a legacy, and it's pretty darn cool when they do. So Zoe came to us. We adopted her from a breeder who lived near the airport in Indianapolis. And when she was bad, we always said, we're going to take you back to the airport. And so, and she picked us out. We got her 2 years after our first German Shepherd shots. He passed away from hemangiosarcoma. And that was devastating because at that point we realized how much these critters mean to us. And when she was about 8 years old, after we had lost Harry, our Keyshound, we got Scout. He was an oops litter from a friend of ours. His mom was like 12 and his daddy was 1.5. And why they didn't, yeah. So,
I mean, 12-year-old mama.
Whoops. So,
Yeah.
so he was the bargain dog at like $75, but he had Zoe had all of these allergies, and Scout at 6 months old had to have one of his knees fixed. He had a TPLO surgery, and then he had another TPLO surgery. And while he was recovering from the second TPLO surgery, he had a meniscus tear. So he was our really expensive dog, while Zoe, I gave her injections for her allergies most of her life. So dogs that have issues find me so that I can take care of them and learn what I need to further the company. Because as these two aged, they showed me just like with the antler shoes, they showed me things that weren't available that they needed. And so they guided me to where I am today, basically. And somebody put this very eloquently. They said, Zoe passed away in 2014. She was 14 years old. And Scout passed away in 2021. He was 13 and he had hemangiosarcoma. So we've had 2 dogs succumb to that. But they said, well, you guided them while they were here with you. And now that they've gone on the next phase of their journey, they're guiding you to where you need to be. And I thought that was really sweet. And actually, and it is very special because they lead me. They still give me ideas, and whether you call it intuition or it's divine guidance or it's the universe or however you want to put it, somehow I come up with these things, and I don't think that it's random because it's always things that aren't available. It's things that can benefit all pets, not just pets with allergies. And now in our house, we have Ziva, who is she just turned 9-year-old German Shepherd. Nice. And then we have Jake and Lucy, who are 2-year-old littermate German Shorthair Pointers. So we still have the same mix in our house. And we miss Scout's energy so much, we decided that we were going to be absolute dumbasses and get 2 of them at the same time. Yeah.
Brave or stupid.
Right? Both, a little of both.
And siblings too. Like for trainers, that's like, oh, no, don't get siblings ever.
Actually, that's not a bad. Jake was the largest of the litter and Lucy was the smallest. We went after one dog. We went after him. We went after Jake. But we had been watching him on a webcam for 8 weeks, and I couldn't leave Lucy because she was tiny and mighty and she reminded me of me. And I thought, she gives it as good as she gets it. And I just, and actually, it's actually been a really, really good idea because they entertain each other. And they leave me alone to play and fight with each other.
Yeah.
And whenever Ziva wants to get involved, she can. But if she doesn't, we just sit back and we watch and we go, yeah, we're glad we're not part of that.
Yeah, we're good over here.
Yeah.
Carry on, you guys. Yeah, we're gonna get another dog. We always have a couple dogs, and we're gonna get another one, but we have to wait for him to be a little bit more healed in the jaw because he's crazy. But we want a playmate for him and all that kind of stuff. We had no intentions of getting a puppy either, but yeah, I think the companionship is definitely good for them. We as trainers are like, no, don't get the siblings. Don't, because
they've been
usually
really,
really poorly. But we get to help people and train them to keep their dogs, let them not be so codependent upon one another.
They do things different. They are separatable. We can separate them. Awesome. And because Lucy, who is this very, very small one, she's about 50 pounds. She's really tiny and dainty, and she sits with her legs crossed like this, and she's very regal. And Jake is so big, he's like 85 pounds, and he has no perception of his size. So he truly is a bull in a china shop. And he'll just come barreling in, and when he drinks water, it goes everywhere. And Lucy just goes like this and laps. But they have started going their separate ways in a lot of things, because Lucy will like to lay out in the sunshine and just kind of chill, while Jake is on that diligent watch for that next squirrel that might come down the tree. So he's really keyed up and she's really laid back.
That's really great. That's good. I'm glad that worked out that way for sure.
Yeah, it could have been a real horror story, but it hasn't been so far.
It could have been. Yeah, I've seen them. Trust me, I've seen them. But it's like, oh my God, why did you do that?